and you'll adjourn the meeting at 5:28.
Meeting is adjourned, 5:28. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the regular meeting of the Beaumont City Council. Today is Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, and given our invocation will be Reverend Christopher Neal Sr. of Douglas Memorial. If you'll please come forward. Douglas Memorial CME Church. If you so choose, please stand and remain standing for our pledge. Everyone, please silence your cell phones at this time. Thank you.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we pause now in this time to recognize your sovereign grace and mercy. We recognize, O Master, that if it had not been for your providence and for your care, we would not have made it this far on our journey. And for that, O Lord, we say thank you. Now, O God, we ask that your presence would be in this place as we deliberate and transact the business of this city. We ask that you would empower and anoint these servants of this city with wisdom, with discernment, with compassion and grace, that they'll make decisions that lead to the betterment of its people, that lead to giving you all of the glory. Father, I pray that those who will speak here tonight will do so with patience, with passion, with conviction, but also with understanding, with the desire that we would come to an end that would lead us all into prosperity and happiness and would take Beaumont where you desire it to go. Father, we need you tonight now more than we've ever needed you before. So be in this place, lead, guide, and direct is our prayer. We ask this in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join us in our pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Neal. May I have the roll call, please?
Mayor Mouton,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Durio,
President,
Councilman.
make industries, communities, and our nation stronger. And whereas 1 in every 44 children has been diagnosed with autism, yet this developmental disability is still misunderstood. We owe it to our fellow Americans to address the disparities they face and to support autistic people with tools that facilitate clear communication, increase productivity, and greater independence. And whereas to support students with autism, the Department of Education is ensuring that public schools uphold their obligation to provide free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environments, assuring that students with autism needs are met and that they are treated without discriminatory use of discipline, but instead with inclusivity, kindness, and guidance. And whereas America is founded on the idea that all people are created equal and deserve to be treated equally throughout their lives, today and always, let us strive to live up to this ideal. Let us embrace our diversity, empower each other to love to their full potential, and promote the basic decency, acceptance, and fairness we know is right. And whereas during the month of April, we strive to promote autism awareness, inclusion, and self-determination for all. Today, April 25th, 2023, we celebrate the achievements of autistic individuals everywhere and celebrate all those living with autism spectrum disorder. And now, therefore, Robin Mouton, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, do hereby proclaim April as Autism Awareness Month and urge the community to take steps to learn more and help spread the word about autism in Beaumont and Southeast Texas. Accordingly, the mayor has hereunto set her hand and caused the seal of the City of Beaumont to be affixed. Signed, Robin Mouton, Mayor, April 25th, 2023. And accepting is Miss Carol Michael and her son, Teddy.
It's okay. I'll just take a second just to introduce my son. My son is Theodore, but he goes by Teddy, and he's 3 years old, and he is a special education student at Dishman Elementary, and he also goes to occupational therapy and speech therapy here in the community. So he's working really hard to learn how to talk and learn how to, interact with other people, and we're really proud of him, and we love him.
If you'll come forward and get your proclamation, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. At this time, I will read the 409-day proclamation. And it reads as follows. Whereas 409 Family was created by local moms who are on a mission to change the narrative about the city of Beaumont, to meet the needs of those in the city, and to be the change they want to see by highlighting all of the amazing things the city has to offer that already exist but may get overlooked. Whereas the ultimate hope of 409 Family is to help fill any and all needs from easily and effectively identifying necessary local resources, partnering with local businesses, highlighting local events, joining hands with hometown organizations, clubs, and nonprofits, and all around improving the quality of life for every Southeast Texan they come in contact with. Whereas 409 Day is a day to celebrate community, togetherness, and all things 409, a one-day festival designed to bring neighborhoods together, showcase local talents, highlight area small businesses and entrepreneurs, regional attractions, and more. Whereas the first 409 Day is planned for Saturday, April 29th, 2023 at Terrell Park Nature Center. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Robin Mouton of the City of Beaumont, recognize the last Saturday of April will officially be ready and do hereby proclaim April 29th, 2023 as the inaugural 409 Day in Beaumont. Accordingly, I, Mayor Robin Mouton, have set my hand in the seal affixed of the City of Beaumont to be affixed on this day, April 25th, 2023, signed Mayor Robin Mouton, and accepting is Danielle Sutton, Christina Loki, Joanna Tricali, Susan Jackson, and Mallory Cross. If you'll please come forward and accept this great proclamation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
I just really quickly wanted to say thank you to the City Council for the proclamation, and that we hope to see you all out at 409 Day on Saturday at Terrell Park.
Well, I was so excited about it. I went last Saturday.
Did you? Well, if you come again this Saturday, then everybody else will be there. So we'll hope to see you.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If you were here for the proclamations, I will give you a little moment to exit if you would like to. If not, we would love for you to stay. Now is the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. Ma'am, it's not the time yet. Now is the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may make public comment on the consent agenda. If you haven't already done so, please fill out the green slip to the back of the room, hand it to the clerk to the front of the room, and the clerk will call your name when it's time for you to come to the podium. The green light will come on at the beginning of your 3 minutes. The red light will be the indication that your 3 minutes are up.
Item 1 on the regular agenda.
Item what?
Item 1.
Also, item 1 on the regular agenda is also open for public comment.
Dylan Richardson, 4575 North Major Drive, Beaumont, Texas. Item I on the consent agenda.
As many of you know, I am speaking to you all today in regards to the item I. For those of you not with the agenda in hand, it is in regards to the civil servants of this community, the mayor and council, receiving an increase in salary and allowances. I believe much of this correlates with what I spoke on last week in regards to term limits. I'd like to begin by quoting the philosopher Plato. The most important qualification for any leader is not wanting to be leader. You should not have an intense desire and ambition to sit in your respective chairs. You should have been chosen by a well-informed populace who believes each of you are most qualified and best equipped to represent the citizens of this city, as well as to serve its best interests. Furthermore, I believe this quote is pertinent due to 2 reasons. Firstly, to the aforementioned grandstanding by much of the council. And secondly, the shortcomings of personal financial success by some of the council. The position of civil servant was not intended to be a means of financial gain, nor to create an extra source of income for you. As was referred to by Madam Attorney last week, much of the necessary charter changes on the ballot at one point were not put into place due to the lack, for a better word, ignorance of voters. Sometimes this ignorance does not just create issues with formality, sometimes this ignorance puts inadequate people in office. I ask you, when you can take lavish tax-paid trips to Las Vegas, Reno, and Washington, D.C., amongst others, why is there a need for an increase? The only logical argument against what I am saying would be to say that Beaumont needs representation at the events that take place in these cities and casinos. I ask you all here today, what if the people attending these events and representing the city are inadequate? What if the citizens are woken to such inadequacy and this elected official is no longer in office in the coming weeks and months? To interject a more personal point before I finish, I also find it laughable that you can ask for a raise while not allocating the proper deserved benefits and union representation for the EMTs and paramedics that save lives in your city. Finally, I ask, beg, and implore that you focus on making change where God put you, where your feet are, as opposed to Las Vegas. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, we will have a presentation of FY 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report by Whitney Penn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Patrick Simmons. I'm here to present the results of the fiscal year 2022 financial statement audit and federal and state single audit. So first off, just to go through our responsibilities as your auditors. So it's to review the financial statements for accuracy and to provide an opinion on those financial statements. So another point is we evaluate your internal controls. We meet with all your different departments and we assess your internal controls and perform testing over those areas such as accounts payable, purchasing, HR, payroll, and utility billing. But we do not provide opinion on internal controls, but we would report any items to you that needed to be brought to your attention. I'm happy to say that we're providing an unmodified opinion on the financial statement. So this is the highest level of assurance we can provide on a set of financial statements. This lets the readers know with reasonable assurance that the financial statements can be relied upon and are free from material misstatement. During the course of our engagement, we did not identify any material misstatements that required correction. So that really goes a long way to really show you that your finance department is doing a great job. So by the time we came out to perform the audit, the books were closed and when we didn't see anything that required a large correction. And so that is not what we see many times. So big shout out to Todd and Cheryl and the whole finance team for doing such a great job in their roles and getting this done on time. And it is a great report. So we discussed the report earlier and went through it in detail. One item is there was a new standard implemented regarding leases. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. There's ultimately no significant effect on the bottom line, but you will see a lease liability offset by a right to use capital asset. And then next year, there will be that similar scenario for any software agreements. In addition to the financial statement audit, since the city receives over $750,000 in federal awards and state awards considered separately, it triggers the need for a federal and a state single audit. And so this year we selected 3 federal programs. So ARP was the largest program, and then your federal transit cluster, and then the home investments partnership. Those are your 3 federal programs. And then the Southeast Texas Auto Theft Task Force was the state single audit program. And so we didn't identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and we provided an unmodified opinion on each major program. And so we did not report any findings, and overall it was a clean audit. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so very much. Do anyone have any questions, any comments?
I do have a comment. I say thank you for the presentation you gave to the audit committee, and it was very thorough. Thank you for the explanations. And Todd and Cheryl and everyone in the finance department, you really shined, and I think it showed. So thank you very much to the staff.
Can I add on to that, Mayor?
Yes.
So I'd like to talk about my staff a little bit. So in attendance today, we have Cheryl Ray, who's a controller. Would you go ahead and stand up?
Please stand, Cheryl.
She's like the leader for this engagement. And then right behind her is Bridget Avick. She's the deputy controller. We also have with us Janice Ridley. She's the grants manager. And then we have Debbie Moe, who's the fiscal assistant. And then not in attendance, I have Angie Breeden, the senior accountant, Courtney Talmadge is an accountant, and Bailey Thompson is a grant accountant. These staff worked a lot of hours and a lot of weekends putting this document together. It's over 155 pages long. It's very technical. They came in before 8, stayed after 5, worked many weekends. It's at least a 4-month process. And I'd also like to point out that this audit is probably going to qualify for a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association of the USA and Canada. It's a very stringent certification to get, and the city of Beaumont's got this certification 36 years in a row, and we expect this audit to receive the same certification, so I applaud staff for that.
Thank you, staff, for the job.
Just one last thing. I know council is always interested in the city of Beaumont, finding grant funds when we can to offset our expenditures. In the single audit that Patrick mentioned, which is the very thin report that you have, just in fiscal year '22, the city of Beaumont took advantage of a little over $23 million of federal grants and a little over $1 million of state grants. So just in fiscal year '22 alone, we $4 million of grants that were given to the city to help offset, some of the projects. So I just wanted to pass that information on as well.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for a job well done, and we appreciate all of the hard work. And I was going to mention about the award, but you're deserving of announcing that you did all the hard work. Thank you so very much. And staff, again, thank you. That's it. We appreciate you. We have another presentation. I'm sorry, we got new mics, and we're trying to get adjusted to these new mics. Last week, we had our meeting at the Tevis room because they were making the adjustments on the new mics. So we're trying to get adjusted. I'm trying to get adjusted to my new mic. So at this time, we have a presentation on carbon sequestration from Caliche Development Partners. If you'll please come forward.
Good evening, Ms. Mayor and council members. My name's Darrell Hall. I'm with Caliche Development Partners. I appreciate y'all having me tonight. I want to apologize in advance. I've got some allergies like everybody else does, so I'm sniffing and kind of coughing, but it's nothing contagious. What I wanted to show y'all tonight is just a brief presentation on the sequestration effort and answer any questions that y'all might have. So we'll get started. Just real quick, our asset overview. We owned Coastal Caverns for 7 years. We recently sold that, and we just bought a new asset, Golden Triangle Storage, still on the Spindletop Dome. This is just a brief facility overview. Won't spend much time on it, but we are experienced operators here. I myself have about 17 years operating in Beaumont, all in subsurface caverns and deep well injections. And I can provide this presentation to y'all afterwards as well. The overview of carbon sequestration, there's 2 models that are being formed right now across America. One is on the left, which is the one that we're not going to do, but I want to show it to you. It's what's been going on all across the globe for many years, where you inject something into the ground to pull the oil up. It could be natural gas, it could be water. In this diagram, I show that to you, but what we're looking to do is to store it like the diagram on the right. Will be below the cap rock in depleted oil and gas reservoirs or saline reservoirs or saltwater reservoirs. There's 2 primary reservoirs in the Beaumont area, the Miocene and the Frio. They're about 7,000 to 8,000 feet deep, and that's where we would be injecting. Capturing comes from the producers. The material will be transported to our facility via pipeline and then picked up through pumps and injected into the ground. The sequestration, the model right now is it stays in the ground forever with a monitoring period of 50 years. Somewhere down the line, it's very probable that somebody will come up with something to use it for, or we'll get it back out of the ground and do something with it. Right now, that's not in the plan. Any questions on this slide? The need for CCS projects, it's really, for our end, we are the sequester and the injecting company, so it's all in being good stewards and trying to look forward to, global carbon neutral. It's hard to do in this area. We're so dependent upon the other facilities, but we're all trying to do our part. The producers will be the ones that really get the benefits from the government programs. Environmental risk and the mitigants. This is probably an important slide for y'all. On the right are all the possible things that could be affected by anything that you do underground. Wellbore release, seismic CD3, the fracture release, sill release, lateral mitigation, surface contamination, drinking water, and the mineral rights, which is not applicable for this project. But how we'll mitigate this is through best practice and quality engineering. All of the exterior casings will be cemented all the way through the zone, so nothing can get through. We'll be using EPA and Railroad Commission quality testing and procedures. We've got historical mapping of this area from all the way back to the early 1900s, and our core samples and integrity seals are all top notch. And we've got a great team of consultants and engineers working on this. So we've been able to check off all of the possible mitigants and with best practices. Here's an existing wellhead that we own that's being injected into those zones now. We're injecting salt water through this. This is a good typical example of what the wellheads and pads would look like. Very small completions, less than 15 inches with the injection casing, 4 5/8 to 6 7/8, depending on what the engineers come back with. That's really it. Is there any other comments or questions I can give you all right now? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir. On slide 2, it spoke to the green gas not entering the air. Can you kind of speak to the community and let them know the benefit of, the green gas not entering the air?
Well, the overall benefit is cleaner air for everybody. The carbon is supposedly a big producer for the greenhouse gas problems and the ozone. With these efforts and best practices, just should create a better environment for everybody.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Hall, thank you so very much.
Thank you all so
appreciate
much.
you. And I want to recognize Mayor Ames is in the audience today. I just spotted you out. Thank you for being here today. Thank you. That does conclude our proclamations and presentations at this time. Again, I will allow anyone that need to leave, if you would like to leave. Thank you. I'm going to call for a motion for the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Mayor, for the purpose of recusal and discussion, I'd like to ask that item H and I be voted on separately.
Thank you. So I'm going to call for a motion for A through G and J. May I have a motion, please?
I move for approval of the consent agenda excluding items H and I at this time.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have a motion for item H, please?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have a motion on consent agenda I?
Mayor, if I could, please. First of all, I'd like to thank the city manager and the staff for bringing this item to the council and the research they did on this, this item. This council has not received a raise, and there's some question with whether it was 1997 or 1985, because in there's a car allowance and administrative allowance, and so there's some questions in there for me, but you're looking at 38 years or 26 years since the council had an increase in these areas. And so though it is an issue I think this council needs to take up at this time, in order to give the council more time to further research the amount of the increase, and rather it should be done all at once to catch us up for 35 years, 38 years, or if it should be done in incremental, in increments to try to help the council get caught up. For that reason, I would like to move that we deny the passing of item number I.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have any discussion? Councilmember Turner.
Yes, ma'am. For me, when it comes to a raise similar to any business, any job, you always have to answer to someone. Example, when a city manager applies for a raise after we do his evaluation, he answers to the council. City attorney, when she applies for her evaluation of potential raise, she answers to the council. So for me, I will be in supportive of a raise if it actually went to the voters, the people that we actually work for. I think it has to be a level of accountability, whereas we all have to answer to someone. And technically, we, the council, work for the people who actually live in this community that put us in office. So if we were going to consider this, I think it's extremely important that we do have charter amendments that we're looking at updating on the November ballot. And I would feel most comfortable if we're going to consider doing this, that the voters should have some input and say so if it's something that they would like to see. Just because we have the authority to do it doesn't necessarily mean we need to do it. I think we should do things in decency and order and let the citizens weigh in on how they feel about this. And if they feel like it's something that we're worthy of, or if they feel like we need to work a little harder on, set some goal standards so it can be some accountability. So that's kind of where I stand with it. Yeah, it's been a long time, but I also think the citizens, you guys are our boss. Y'all should be able to weigh in on that decision.
Thank you. Any other comment? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 1, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3 economic development agreement as well as a lease agreement with CDP II CO2 Sequestration, LLC of Houston, Texas, for economic development incentives during the development of a carbon sequestration facility within city property. And staff is recommending approval of the resolution.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 1. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. City Clerk, did you get that? Is there any discussion? Councilmember Turner.
For staff, have we ever did a 380 agreement in the past? Have we ever actually did one as a city?
Yes, sir. We did one with HEB for the development of their project there on 11th and College.
Okay, and my follow-up is, I think it's important that we actually explain to the community what a 380 agreement is. You know, we're looking at it, we're giving this, and we study it, but I think it's important that the community understands what we're actually discussing.
Right. So the a 380 is Chapter 380 of the Texas Code. It allows cities the ability to offer abatements, rebates, basically economic incentives for a project to move forward. So we have different kind of tools in our toolbox. We have Chapter 311, we have Chapter 380, we have local neighborhood empowerment zones. We have a variety of tools in our toolbox, but 380 is one of those tools that we're allowed to use. Again, the idea is to try to encourage the project to move forward.
And I'll add, we also have a 380 agreement with Enterprise Marine West in Beaumont.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Getz.
Todd, can you explain what type of benefits the city is going to receive if this is approved? Or Chris?
Sure. So at the outset, if the project moves forward, we're going to benefit from a direct payment of $100,000 per injection well. So again, as Mr. Hall had shown on the slide earlier, every time there's basically a wellhead where they're injecting into the subsurface, that will be $100,000. And then moving forward from that, we would receive $1 per metric ton of carbon dioxide that's captured and stored. And then there is
Are there minimums?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you for pointing that out. There is a 250,000 either metric ton or dollar minimum per year. So there is a floor. And then part of the program is that you have to monitor, and that would be Caliche's responsibility, monitor the sequestration field. And we believe that's 50 years in terms. And so the city would receive $50,000 per year for each of those 50 years moving forward.
Thank you.
And council, I just want to point out that dollar per metric ton is a very competitive rate. There aren't a lot of contracts like this available, but we did do research and we worked with some other experts in the field, so that dollar rate is very competitive.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Turner.
So Chris, do we have a calculated, I know we got some of the individual breakdowns, is just a calculated ROI on this particular deal? Or not at the moment?
You know, we just have estimates, so we don't want to, have too high of expectations. But again, the expectations, and Daryl can jump in here, we're thinking that their estimates, trying to get the numbers here. Daryl, do you recall the exact estimates per metric ton for year, best case scenario?
I have it on the computer. I can pull that up, that old presentation up. I don't have it directly. I don't mind doing that though.
Or either if you could get it, we can share it with council later if you don't have it, Daryl, but we can make it available to you.
Yeah, if anybody in the community asks, I just want to be able to make that accessible to them as well, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think in the presentation it was 24 million. Does that sound right?
Per year?
For 3 of the customers
Yes, yes,
over the life of the project.
correct, yeah.
24 million over the life of the project.
Yeah, I just think that number was important for everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No other comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 2, please?
Yes, Mayor. Council consider a request for amendments to the zoning ordinance concerning the Board of Adjustment, Section 28.02.0053B. And at a joint public hearing held on April 17, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the request for amendments to the zoning ordinance concerning the board adjustment to this section. And staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 2. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the second.
The motion. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Duria.
Mr. Boone, can you just explain what these amendments are and exactly what this ordinance is for?
Yes, sir. So when the Board of, as you know, we have a zoning ordinance which controls use, but also controls such things as your building footprint, how big a building can be, how much setbacks you have to have. So when you write a zoning ordinance, you cannot write a perfect ordinance to take into account every situation. And so for an kind of a classic example is, let's say, a triangular shaped lot. Okay. So the ordinance is really kind of written for a rectangular sized lot. So if you have a piece of property that's triangular size, well, how do you handle the side setback, the rear building setback? And so the idea behind a Board of Adjustment is that you take those particular situations, and a board that's appointed by this body can hear the appeal and either approve or deny essentially waivers or variances from the zoning ordinance, okay?
Like on case-by-case basis?
On a case-by-case basis, again, looking at particular situations related to that lot, to that development, where the ordinance just doesn't take everything into account. And that's typical. It's across every city with a zoning ordinance. Typically, well, in many states and cities, economics is not a justification for a variance. So in other words, if in a lot of cities and states, if you said, look, this is, if I have to build it this way, it's going to cost me a lot more money. That's not a justification for a variance. However, the state law has changed where that in Texas now, it can be considered as a justification for a variance. It cannot be the single justification. So if you look in your memorandum, there are some guidelines that says if the financial cost to compliance is greater than 50% of the appraised value of the structure as shown on the most recent appraisal, you can consider that. So in other words, that can be a consideration, but it can't be the sole consideration. The board also has to take into account A, B, and C listed in your memo, which is to make sure you're not contrary to the public interest, to make sure that, this is, and this is typical language, literal enforcement of the chapter will result in unnecessary hardship because of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, shape, topography, or other extraordinary or exceptional physical situation or characteristic that would cause the hardship. So we're just adding the economic test to a list that basically the applicants have to meet in order to get a variance.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. May I have the reading of item number 3, please?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow swimming lessons in the RS Residential Single Family Dwelling District located at 4890 Brace Street. And at a joint public hearing on April 17, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the request for the SUP with the following condition. Per engineering, the driveway can accommodate 6 cars and 9 cars can park on the street. At no point shall cars drive to cause blocked driveways or restrict life safety vehicles to navigate the neighborhood. The owner of the business shall be responsible for enforcing such parking restrictions. And the approval of the ordinance is recommended with that condition.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 3. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 4, please?
Council consider a request for an amended specific use permit to expand a parking lot in the GCMD 2 General Commercial Multiple Family Dwelling 2 District located at 1350 West Lucas Drive with the following conditions. The expansion will not require perimeter landscaping along the northern property line. 2, along Lucas Drive in the gravel parking lot, a 6-foot landscape buffer shall be installed and in compliance with section 28.04.006 landscaping and screening requirements. And number 3, adhere to all applicable engineering requirements. And 4, submitted an acceptable parking layout to engineering through the proper permitting process. And staff recommends approval with those recommendation of conditions.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 4. Is there a motion, please?
Move to approve with the conditions listed.
There's a motion with conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion?
I had a question, Mayor.
Councilmember Turner.
Just for clarity, from staff, I think, Chris, you handle this department. If this the gravel area behind the restaurant, is the home that he purchased next door to it, that he wants to basically demolish and turn it into a parking lot?
Right, so there's the restaurant, then there's a gravel parking lot, and then there's a house next to it, so he wants to expand that. It would be the north, towards the north.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was just trying to see clarity. All right, thank you.
I think he stated, Councilmember Turner, that he's going to move the house to expand the parking lot.
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried. May I have the reading of item number 5, please?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a carpentry business in the GCMD General Commercial Multiple Family Dwelling District located at 1009 Orange Avenue. And at a joint public hearing held on April 17, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the request with the following conditions. Shall be in compliance with section 28.04.007 performance standards. 2, shall be in compliance with all applicable building and fire codes. 3, outside storage of construction materials shall not be permitted. 4, construction plans must meet all requirements by water utilities for water and sanitary sewer services, including any requirements for the city's backflow, pre-treatment, and our fog program. And staff is recommending approval of the ordinance with those conditions.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 5. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve with conditions.
It's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. How close is this to residents?
There is, I believe, a residence across the street. But this section of GCMD at Gilbert and Orange is commercially zoned GCMD. But to answer your question, there are definitely single-family residences nearby.
I mean, I guess the only concern I had was just noise.
So if I could, one of the conditions is, because I think that was a consideration, is compliance with 28.04.007 performance standards. So if noise became an issue and we got complaints, we could always ask them to address it. If they did not, we could bring it back to council.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You want some water?
Any opposed?
I understand.
The motion carries. Thank you. May I have the reading of item number 6, please?
Yes, Mayor. Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a gaming facility in the GCMD, General Commercial Multiple Family Dwelling District, located at 2560 Interstate 10 East. And at a joint public hearing held on April 17, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to deny the request. And staff recommends denial of the ordinance.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 6. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 7, please?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a gaming facility in the GCMD General Commercial Multiple Family Dwelling District located at 3010 Washington Boulevard. And at a joint public hearing on April 17, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to deny the request. And likewise, staff is recommending denial.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 7. May I have a motion, please?
I so move to deny.
Aye.
Somebody want a second?
I'll second.
Ward, let him have it.
Is there any discussion?
Boulevards are
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have the reading of item number 8, please?
Item 8, council consider a request to abandon a portion of the Carpenter Road right-of-way. And at a joint public hearing held on April 17, 2023, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the request to abandon a portion of the road with the following conditions. 1, shall retain the existing right-of-way as an easement. 2, any street lights within the abandonment will convert to private security lights with the private property upon approval of the abandonment. Security lighting is optional and therefore billing for continued usage shall be transferred to the owner of the lights will need to be removed. 3, no permanent structures or appendages shall be placed within the easement property. The city will not be responsible for any surface restoration when water and or sanitary sewer repairs are necessary within the city of Beaumont water line or sanitary sewer line easement. 4, if a fence is to be installed, a minimum 6-foot wide gate shall be provided for city crews to access the easement. 5, if approved, applicant shall obtain an appraisal and title search for the property to abandon at their expense. Appraisal and title search must be submitted to the planning office along with proof that payment has been arranged prior to the item being placed on city council agenda. And staff is recommending approval of the ordinance with those conditions.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of item number 8. May I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carry. Now is the time for any citizen who would like to speak on public comment. If you haven't already done so, please fill out the green slip to the back of the room, hand it to the clerk to the front of the room. She will call your name. When it's time for you to speak, the green light will come on at the beginning of your 3 minutes, and the red light will be your indication that your time is up.
Janet Pollard, 5320 Phelps Road, Beaumont, Texas.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. I come for 2 reasons. Number 1, I've seen these negative commercials. I've heard negative comments. I've received negative mailings in reference to this election. It's very disappointing to see how people are so willing to follow all of the negativity. They forget about the good that's been done and the work that you're doing presently We have yet to see everything come to fruition that you're working on. Mayor Mouton, you're a wonderful role model, not only for all young people, but especially for young girls and young ladies of color. You are the first Black female to be mayor. I was the first Black female to be a lieutenant in my fire department, so I know exactly what you feel like. You're the face of Beaumont. You represent us in a positive manner wherever you go. You show people that we have diversity. You show people that things are possible. Yes, you travel, but if anybody knows anything about leadership, part of your responsibility is to travel and to meet other leaders and to have conferences and discussions and meetings and come back and make our city stronger. So while it's a shame that other people take their time to be negative and make disparaging comments about you, you need to remember, when they go low, you go high. The second thing, since my history is 20 years of service as a firefighter, an EMT, as well as a hazardous materials specialist, there is a solution to the EMS problem in the city of Beaumont. Our cities were very similar. We had a similar problem. However, we came to a crossroads in the 90s, mid-90s. In 94, we started discussing taking over the EMS responsibilities from our contracted provider. They were not able to meet the needs of our city. So after many debates, numerous meetings with union leaders, and with the leadership of our fire department, we came to a discussion and a decision that we would do that. We incorporated many of the paramedics from the EMS provider, those that were able to meet the standards of the firefighters. If they were able to meet the standards, they were cross-trained to firefighter paramedics. If they were not able to meet the standards, they remained as EMT paramedics, they were city employees, and they were on the state retirement system. The firefighters that were able to be paramedics that were within our ranks, and those that were paramedics prior to coming to us that trained as firefighters, they were the ones allowed on the fire and police retirement system. There is a solution. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have a lot of groaning and moaning, but it can be done. And I'm here to tell you, I'll answer any questions that you have. We answered over 16,000 EMS calls every year. We had 6 ALS engines, 7 ALS ambulances housed in our fire department.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, I'm sorry, but I would like to hear the completion of what you're saying. Because I've heard a lot of difficulties, but I want to hear what your solutions were.
Thank you. Within the first year of the transition to the fire department taking over the EMS services, or I shouldn't say taking over, we incorporated them. We found in the first year that our response times were better. We found that the complaint levels from the citizens went down. We transported 76% of the calls that we went on to the facilities in our city. Now, mind you, we had enough personnel. We trained, all of our personnel had to be trained to a shock trauma level. Now, remember, this was back in the 90s. After everything changed, we trained them all to enhanced level, which is an intermediary EMT. You're able to give medications. Everything is done under the physician's licensure. So every EMT that is able to provide advanced life support, whether they're paramedic or enhanced, works under the licensure of whatever physician the city agrees with. Okay, they meet that need and they must perform their duties according to that physician. We were able to bring everything to a level that the complaints were so minimal by comparison. This was back in 94. We took over in 96. We put everything into effect. By the end of 96, the reports that came back, the cost-effective nature of it, we weren't paying a contractor to do a job that they were having difficulty meeting. We weren't having issues with people that were out of shape, not able to perform the duties in the fire service, because there's certain people that are just not cut out to be firefighters. I was a training officer for 12 years of my career. There's just not something that you can just say, here, be a firefighter. It doesn't work that way. And with
you later.
Sir?
I'd like to visit with you later.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. But I just want you to know that our citizens deserve the best service. And to do that, you're going to need to look within. It's time to stop looking from inside looking out. You can't count on people from the outside to provide our citizens with the best service. We need to start training our personnel, and you're going to have to offer them incentives because there's a lot of continuing education that goes with being a paramedic. There's a lot of continuing education that goes with being an intermediate EMT. So you have to incentivize people. It's going to be difficult. I was on the local board as well. And there were a lot of groaning, especially the older set of firefighters, because they don't want that extra responsibility. It's a hefty responsibility you're asking your personnel to take on, but it can be done. You offer the incentives, you offer in-house training so that they don't have to go out and spend their money to get the certifications. You make it so that it's an easy transition. You can do it. We can. Our citizens deserve it.
What's your name again, ma'am?
Janet Poehler.
Ms. Poehler, thank you so very much for your comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Albert Harrison, 1240 Ashley, Beaumont, Texas.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, other city staff, other concerned citizens. I was here last week to complain and talk about 1163 Avalon, which is the property I own. The main issue I talked about then, maybe I may have misled. I don't know, I'm not sure. But I know the job is not complete at this time. What I'm really saying is that as a community advocate, I must emphasize that this entire community needs the ditches mopped out, and dug out properly. At this time, I'm willing to say that 1163 Avalon, that ditch is not dug out properly. Water is still remaining into that crosswalk there, in that pipe. It shouldn't be there. It should float somewhere. It should go somewhere. Also, they stopped about halfway in digging out the ditch toward Forest Street, which is going east. They still have not dug out the rest of it. As I looked to observe more closely, I observed the pipe going across Avalon Street on the Forest Street side. On the north side, it is cleaned out properly and good. And I must give that homeowner who lives on that corner for cleaning out that ditch properly and good. But on the south side of the ditch, it's fully clogged up. So it needs to be blown out, cleaned out. And I walked the entire around that block in the area. And in my conversation with some of the residents that live there now, at one time, this was a pretty well all-black neighborhood. This neighborhood now has become Black, Hispanic, and white now. So, and in talking with some of the Hispanic residents, I found out that they don't understand or do not know. They just think that the way things are when they move there, that's the way they should be. They don't know that ditches need to be cleaned out. They don't know that the ditches haven't been dug out in over 20 years. Now, something's wrong with that picture. It hasn't been done in over 20 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Kim Miller, 2328 Poplar Street, Beaumont, Texas.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and the citizens. I'm here, I have three things that I want to speak on today. One is the animal shelter on Pine Street. First, I want to give them accolades for finally taking care of the situation. However, it took a little over a month for them to come and get a dog that was abandoned, that was just in our neighborhood. They asked me to come fill out the paperwork. I filled out the paperwork. They wanted video surveillance from my cameras. I gave them that. This dog would actually come, turn my trash over. My neighbors gracefully would pick it up for me. The dog would sleep on my porch. We couldn't come out of our front door. We had to go out the back because the dog was sleeping on the porch. My daughter would come home from work at night. Me or one of my neighbors had to get up in the middle of the night to go outside and ward this dog off. So they finally did come get the dog. The officer, Barrett, I believe his name was, he did come out 3 times in one day. And finally at 11:45 that night, he was able to get the dog. So I do want to give him kudos for sticking with it. But I do want to know, why did it take a month or longer for them to get to this situation? My second point is, I've been living in my residence for approximately 45 years, since I was a teenager. The properties around me, the homes have been torn down, and now the back taxes or problems with the city. I know you send people out to cut the lawn, but now it has become almost a forest and a jungle around there. I was told that no one cuts the trees. And we have many trees, they are adult trees now. They have grown up, they're leaning over on other fences and other properties, and it's becoming a nuisance. And I wanted to know what can be done about having some of these trees cut. They send people out to cut the grass, and they cut around these trees, that if the grass would have been cut properly in the beginning, it would never be in trees to grow there. And my third point before my time run out is Charlton Pollock Park. I'm planning on having a graduation celebration for my daughter who's graduating college on May the 12th. And I was told on yesterday that there's no water supply to use. We want to have a crawfish boil. There's no way for him to be able to purge the crawfish or whatever. So what can be done about a water supply being put at Charlton Pollock Park?
Thank you, and congratulations.
Vernon Durden, 16436 Westbury Road, Beaumont, Texas.
To the mayor, hope your voice comes back, but the mic is doing good. I wish I could come up behind this lady. This is not a fake hat. I am a firefighter, and you guys really don't know what they go through. They really go through a lot. They really, really sacrifice a lot and have to be in shape. I'm a volunteer firefighter, Mike. Okay. Anyway, I like to ask the city attorney to share the emails I'll share with her about a piece of property that I have that has been erroneously identified. At 6:10 today, Chris Boone made a statement that no ordinance is perfect. And there's an ordinance where my property was mischaracterized, and I'm receiving letters on demolition. When I bought the property, it was a residence. I never used the property any other way. It was demolished as a residence, but it's being demolished as commercial. I will leave copies with this. I received about 10 years of this stuff, so you know which one it is. I'll leave a copy with Ms. Tina Broussard, and I'll have a meeting with the city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durden.
Latasha Bettis, Beaumont, Texas, homeless.
Hi, I've already, let me see, I think I need to address y'all, city council members. I've already sent y'all an email about a group of guys in the area that have been using drugs to rape women. I haven't got like a response back from y'all, but I sent the email, and like I've been investigating, and I figured,
sent it all to y'all so y'all can maybe do something about it because it's been going on for a long time.
Ma'am, I'm not able to respond back to your comment, but you're welcome to continue.
Okay, well, I've done the most that I can do. Like I have PTSD because they raped me. I have PTSD because they murdered the child that I was carrying. So like I'm not a cop, I'm not trained, I'm not an attorney, and I just really need it to be investigated because what they're gonna do is continue to commit more crimes and cover up what they've already done. And they're very connected, they're on boards, city council. So I'm a victim and I shouldn't be having to do like this much work. And they're a threat to like everybody in this area. So just hope something gets done. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
James Eller, 3587 East Lucas Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
Afternoon. I just want to address, I appreciate Randy Felshaw, Mike Getz for the second and the first on the increase on the salary. I just want to point that out. Thank you for AJ for pointing out, the reasons why y'all would hold back on voting for that right now, because it should go to the voters. I appreciate that. I wanted to bring to council to find out what is the problem with us having so many, seems like we have a lot of lawsuits. I don't know if it's every time, I can't say it's every time, but it seems like we have a growing increase on the lawsuits. Is there a public information to state what the actual facts are behind that, or do we have to wait till it gets settled? I'm not sure if we have that on the link, if we have that on like the government link to find out, because I know citizens want to know actually where our lawsuit, if it's being settled, how much is being settled out. Is there, if anybody knows that, could somebody reach out to me through email possibly on that? I do want to point out to the city council, like I spoke about my own home, about being red tagged. We have big buildings downtown. We have development that we have to try and increase over on Crockett Street. However, just right there, cat a corner from it, it's the former Texas Solutions or Workforce Solutions building, 304, I think it's South Pearl or Pearl Street. It has had fire damage to the third floor. It has fully been ran through by vandals. It's not the property owner's fault that has occurred, but it seems like since those buildings aren't being red tagged, they're still, like we spoke, I think it was March 10th about on your watch, Mr. Samuels, that you wouldn't want to have anybody injured through the safety of individuals getting into properties that they have access to that are not secured. So if we could look into why these bigger buildings are not being red tagged, also like the Hinchy House, I can climb up under there and climb into it. Regardless on being a state and also being that veterans have done work in those places, we can still secure these properties. If homeowners are being held to a certain standard, then I would think that any property would be held to that same standard for the safety and also codes and violations and ordinances. Everybody should be held to that same standard, I would hope and I would guess. But like I said, it's up to y'all, and I would just look into, if y'all could look into that. I also want to point out my last little 35 seconds, if I do want to push for body-worn cameras from the police department to still be available to the public. So if we could push forward for that motion while we still have a 4-3 council and possibilities for, it's a predominantly minority community, so you stand out for those. You also have the other individuals that represent, that are not minority, but they do represent the meek and the poor of the community. And that's a general of the community is 3/4 under, impoverished and needs of help. So if we could push for certain things for the benefit of the citizens, I'd appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Eller.
Kenneth Earls, 1265 Condon, Beaumont, Texas.
My name is Kenneth Earls. I'm a retired fireman from the city of Arlington.
this thing that I looked at last night dealing with April 4th. I know the firefighters won't be happy with what I'm going to say. It is your job to spend the money for the citizens. Those individuals that don't like it, move on. Those individuals that want to comply and accept what our city manager and our fire chief place before them, so be it. First, I want to talk about the 3 levels of EMT. Basic, advanced, which used to be the EMTI program, and paramedics. When I was in the city of Arlington, the city council mandated in the 80s that we would become EMTIs, dispensing everything that a paramedic did, we had to do. We couldn't dispense 2 drugs. That was the lower level. We were the first in this state that went to the I program. If we didn't like it, our chief told us, find another job in the city. If you couldn't find a job in the city, then it was time for you to move on. A lot of the older individuals, like the young lady said before, they grumbled. But guess what? They went on ahead and got that I because it carried that stipend that was $200 more a month. I want you to know that the fire department and the police department, they're under the purview of that city manager and their bosses that promoted up. They have no say. They follow the rules or they leave this city. Last time I was here, I was told that 197 firefighters don't live in the city of Beaumont. That's my money that they're taking to other cities and spending. That's your money that they're taking to other cities and spending. I want in this next charter that every firefighter has to live, future firefighters, we can't do nothing about the older ones, but the future firefighters, they will have to live in the city of Beaumont. That's not even negotiable. If they can't live here in Beaumont, they should move, they should find another job.
Thank you, Mr. Earls.
Addie Allen, 9695 Gross, Beaumont, Texas.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, Councilman, and all others. Oh, you're going to stop me?
I'm sorry.
Start,
Go
huh?
ahead.
It's okay, I'm used to that.
I tell you what, start her over. Yeah, start her. Can you start her over?
Please give me my 3 minutes so I won't fuss.
Okay, your 3 minutes has started.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not a firefighter, but past professions have included health and safety. We've had tornadoes, and you know I stand up here every time. And I am just appalled because we had a notice last week at 1 a.m. It wasn't different for anything tornado versus a child being abducted. When are we going to fix this now? I know, City Manager, you told me that the staff is working on it. But bottom line, lives have been lost in quite a few states. You know, Arkansas, one dropped down in Tyler. It's getting close. So, you know I'm going to run out of time, but to save lives is so important. And I would just love this council not to just take a slow view at this. Our weather is different now. So what are we going to do?
We're not going to hold our hands. Some people had shelter in Oklahoma and couldn't get to it. A lot of tornadoes, by statistics, come in at night when you're asleep. So if we got to have more firefighters to respond because it's all connected, we need to get on board. We got these elections coming up. I haven't heard anybody talk about that. That's saving lives. We're paying taxes. Come on, council. Come on, mayor. Come on, city manager. How long does it take? I have supplied names of suppliers. So that's not an excuse. And staff is working on it. How long? Do we have to have lives lost? When I left a city council meeting a couple of months ago, there was a tornado out there. I left here in high winds and didn't have a clue. All we got to do is get sirens. We can pay for things. I want you to have some money, because my gas is the same price that your gas costs. So I'm happy about it, and I'm sure the citizens will probably be too. So let's please. I'm not going to talk about planes, because guess what? When there's high winds, somebody in the aviation department knows about it. So let's let the citizens know. Thank you, and you have a wonderful week, a day. And Councilman Getz, I'm praying for your wife. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl Jackson, 862 Porter Street, Beaumont, Texas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here today. Recently, we lost an icon, a legend in our community by the name of Coach Philip Sweat. For those of you who don't know him, he was with BISD for about 50 years. He was not only our teacher, our coach, he was our father to the fatherless. He was a small man in stature, huge in character, if anybody know Coach Sweat. He caused a phenomenal impact with every student he came in contact with. I'm asking that we name a street in honor of Coach Philip Sweat. The location that I suggest is on the side of Charlton Pollard Elementary School, which is Jackson Street. It's 1 block from Brooklyn to Irving. That was the original location of Dunbar School back in the day when I was there. So we will not forget him. He will continue to live on regardless. However, to honor him, we would appreciate that you all would consider that 1 block on the side of Charlton Pollard Elementary School to be named Coach Sweat. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, I'll allow council member comments, and I will start with you, Mayor Pro Tem Durio.
Thank you, Mayor. Hope you get your voice back as well. I just want to thank Ms. Polar for coming up. It's very refreshing to have informed citizens come to the podium and actually speak up and try to offer solutions and help out the situation. That's very much appreciated. Also, and I want some folks to know, it seems like somebody may have forgotten, I actually do know what it is to be a firefighter and what they go through. I did it for 31 years. And also, today I attended a groundbreaking at LIT, the Workforce and Allied Health Training Center. It's going to be a beautiful building. They should be completed in August of 2024. And it's a training center for the health jobs, nursing, and things like that. But the great thing about it, they're going to have they can get an associate's degree there, and they can have a seamless transition over to the university and take all of their credit hours to the university to get a bachelor's degree. So that's something that's needed, and it's in Ward 4 also, as is the whole Lamar University system. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Getz.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to see more firefighters and police officers living in the city of Beaumont. Ms. Attorney, I've been told, I think I've been told that there's some court cases that requires to not be able to, that prevent us from requiring that. Is
The
that
state
correct?
constitution has declared that to be unconstitutional unless there is a compelling reason for that. And so currently your charter requires that your city attorney and your city manager reside in the city of Beaumont, but there has been court cases that determine that there is no compelling governmental interest to require employees of the city, whether they are police, fire, or your public works director, for example, reside in the city of Beaumont or reside in the city where they work. We do, at the city of Beaumont, give hiring preference to citizens, but we cannot exclude anyone who lives outside the city.
I was afraid you were going to tell me that, but thank you for the explanation anyway. Councilmember Neal, I understand your wife was in an accident, and I pray that she recovers. I found out about it yesterday. I heard it was pretty serious, and hope she's feeling better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner.
Well, I agree 100% with more firefighters in our police department actually residing in the city of Beaumont. And we may not be able to force it, but we can make incentives so strong that they can really, really consider it. So I've asked for that last time we had this discussion because I was the one who asked how many firefighters actually resided within the city of Beaumont. And when we were told that alarming number, I asked that our city manager look at not only the fire department, but also our police department. I really want to see a strong incentive package to inspire those guys to live and reside in the city of Beaumont. I want to remind everybody that early voting is currently going on. And also, I would like a firm update, Mr. Manager and our city attorney. Me and Councilmember Getz had the honor of sitting down with nightlife owners. We had a few incidents in the past where it was issues in the parking lots of nightlife and bars and clubs. And we wanted an update as far as nightlife task force. I know we had the second follow-up, but it's getting to the point where time is kind of going on. And the reality is we owe these guys a third meeting and we owe them a firm answer on what can we do to assist them. And I kind of want to keep the accountability level there that we actually give them what we initiated. Thirdly, I want to compliment the Parks Department. I was at Charlton Pilot School. I spoke at a pep rally, and I was informed that those kids get to vote and pick how that park equipment will look over there at the Charlton Pilot Park. So I want to really compliment the Parks Department because that shows we have working relationships between BISD and the city of Beaumont. You know, it's been stated we don't, but I know we do. So I think it's very important to highlight those positive things. Another thing, Todd, in your department, much respect and appreciation, man. Often we don't compliment you guys, and you guys are doing great things. I want to compliment you and say thank you for what you do. Every time you excel, anybody excel within the city of Beaumont, I think we need to give you guys your flowers, so thank you, okay? Another thing, STAR testing. I'm a parent. Young kids in school. If you're a grandparent, an auntie, an uncle, you need to call your kids, your nephews, your nieces, and love on them because this test makes these kids extremely nervous. I do these pep rallies at various elementary schools, and I ask the room, raise your hand if you're nervous about the STAR test. And every kid, almost at every grade level, raises their hand. So understand the enormous amount of pressure on these kids when they're taking this testing. So let's make sure we call them, encourage them, love on them, make sure they eat their breakfast and get to school on time. Sam, I see you in the audience. You're on the youth council. I want to let you know I appreciate you for coming, being consistent. This is another testament of a working relationship between our school district and our council. Sam is on the youth council, and he advocates and talks about things from a youth perspective as in what they want to see changed in the city of Beaumont. I remember when the youth council first started, the entire group said once they move from Beaumont, they're not coming back. I can honestly say after working with these young leaders, I'm not going to say kids, I'm going to say young leaders, they have man, they've motivated me, and all of them are saying what they want to come back to Beaumont to do. So that's a testament to say when you spend time with them, work with them, mentalities and perceptions can change. And I believe the perception and mentality of what we say, what we do, how we respond, how we act in Beaumont can change. We just got to keep working at it. Lastly, Ms. Tina, can you get with Ms. Cheryl and show her how the petition form goes to rename the street? I think that's important that we get her the proper information she needs. And everybody who had a comment, I know, Mr. Manager, we're doing something where you always give us a follow-up. So I want to appreciate you for the follow-ups. I want to make sure everybody's comment that came to the podium gets addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Felshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up with Councilman Turner, early voting is going on. Let me add just a little bit to that. I had a citizen text me and ask the question, why are the polling places closing at 5 o'clock? People that get off of work can't make it. Remember, early voting is continuing tomorrow through Saturday, 8 to 5, Sunday, 12 to 5. That's something new for us here recently. And then Monday and Tuesday, 7 to 7. And then Saturday, May 6th, 7 to 7. So there's some opportunities there for you. We appreciate you guys voting, and please get out and vote as soon as you can. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Samuel.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we need to give flowers while people can smell them. City employees, we have some great employees at the City of Beaumont. Todd, it showed today in the audit meeting, you continue, how many years straight?
36.
That's a long time to be having excellent reports coming back. And you didn't mention how not many places across the state got the funds we received from FEMA. Federal awards, yes. So thank you very much for that. And Kenneth, Mr. Williams, I want to say thank you for going out to see Miss Purley. I understand she was real pleased. It's hard to please Miss Purley, but you pleased her. So thank you for going out there. And we've gotten that done. And Ms. Cheryl, Charlton Paula is, I'm seeing it continually getting to be the place that it needs to be, historic. There's a lot of history out in the Charlton Paula area, from parks to the individuals. So I knew Coach Sweat, and we'll work toward that end. Now, I was a bit perplexed. I realize in order for anything to come to council, it has to either come from staff or from 2 council members. And I wasn't sure. I was a bit surprised when this issue came to council about the increase in salaries. Was that something that staff brought to council for consideration?
It was a request from council.
Okay. From 2 council members?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Samuel, since you brought it up, I don't mind making a couple comments on that as well. My interpretation of the charter is that the sitting council cannot raise the salary of for that current term. And first of all, just for clarity, I was not the one that requested this. But even whenever you go, there was some discussion today about possibly putting it out on the vote, or for a vote to change that. And my interpretation of the charter is, I don't think it can be done that way either. I think that it would have to actually be voted on by the council, but only for the next term. So in the situation like we're in right now, the vote would have to take place before May the 5th. And so I don't know if putting it on the ballot for a vote is the proper solution for that. I think the proper solution would be to have some type of workshop down the road to discuss that for a future council. All right, so moving on to the next thing. Just want to say congratulations to the Nature's River Festival on a spectacular event this past weekend. And then last but not least, just remind everybody to get out and vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Samuel.
I thank you for that clarification. I think that has to come from council. It's not from the charter. As you were correct, it has to come from the council itself and not for the term that they're in. But it was just a bit surprising that that came up, but yet no one stood for it. And I was just a bit perplexed how that happened. If this came from council members.
Councilmember Felshaw.
Yes, for some time, the council has talked off and on. I've been on council now for 2 terms, and there's been discussion about should we address this issue of a pay raise for the council. As I mentioned, there are some questions about salary and car allowance, administrative allowance, so I'm not really sure about how all that fell. Some of it goes back to 1985, some of it back to 1997, so I'm still trying to sort that out. But there's been discussion off and on for some time about maybe it's time for the council to take up this issue and address this issue. I don't know why former administrations didn't do it or former councils didn't do it. Maybe it's for fear of the political fallout. I don't know. As a council member, I am willing to stand up and maybe address those issues that are hard to address because that's what leaders do. And so I was approached I was asked if I would make the motion or if I would like to make the motion at this time, and I said yes. Once I read the posted item, to be honest with you, I was a little sticker shocked by the amount. I didn't want to get into that because I felt like it would imply that the staff had perhaps reached too far. But because Councilman Samuel brought it up, I'll be glad to clarify it. I made the motion. That's why I decided to make the motion to deny it. If I'm going to make the motion to put it on, I'll make the motion to take it off. And because, as I said, that I was sticker shocked by the amount of the raise, but I didn't want to get into that. I appreciate the staff, and I tried to honor them in my motion just a moment ago, but here we are. So again, city manager and staff, thank you for what you did. Thank you for the research, but I put the motion on, I took the motion off.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner, then Councilmember Getz.
One thing about our charter, this is why it definitely needs to be updated because we're all saying interpretation. Interpretation can be a big issue because guess what? We all have different perspectives and we all can see things and read things a different way. Mr. Manager, in the past, when you have you ever dealt with an issue whereas it came to a raise and it was a charter issue? Have you ever had a problem with a council putting something on the ballot in that magnitude and let the citizens weigh in? Because I understand, again, we're saying we interpret it, but have you seen it done in the past?
Well, I'll talk about 2 instances. You know, a lot of times the council has the ability to issue COs. You can issue any debt you like to issue. But sometimes I've had councils that would put it on the ballot to be voted upon, although the citizens would vote. Although the citizen vote was non-binding, council got an idea what the public wanted, what the citizenry wanted, and then they voted there after that. Also, council went through a charter amendment and just basically put it on the ballot to amend the charter, so thereby changing that section of the charter to ever how you wanted it to be. So you could actually do a charter amendment to change how that's done. Then that goes on the ballot too. It has to be a vote of the citizens to amend the charter of the city. So one could be a charter amendment, 2 could just be council finding out the will of the people, but still you have the authority to make the decision.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make that crystal clear, you know, and I said my stance on it. I said my opinion on it, but you made it clear that charters have various interpretations, but it is possible to put it on the ballot and get the voters' feedback and input, because my feelings are everybody has to be accountable to somebody, and we're accountable to the citizens of Beaumont that put us here. So that's what I wanted clarity on, and I want to make sure it's crystal clear, because I know it's interpretation with this charter, but I want to know through your experiences with charters, have it ever been done before? And you clarified that, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Getz.
Thank you, Mayor. Like Councilmember Samuel, I was somewhat surprised to see this item be put on the agenda. I didn't talk to any council members about it ahead of time. So I believe that when you run for a position like city council or mayor, you're doing it for a public service. You're not doing it necessarily for a paycheck. Depending on how much time you spend on it, you can spend a considerable amount of time as a city council member. And, a lot of people also have jobs that it eats into their time. They have to actually take away from their jobs to perform this public service. One thing that I would like to see us potentially look at is to avoid situations where you have something stay in one spot since 1985. Many years we give a COLA, a cost of allowance raise to our city employees. We try to tie it to the inflation. Maybe that is something that we can explore for city council as well, because, it is appropriate probably to consider some sort of a raise after how many years? 36 years. But, to double the salary in one fell swoop, which was what I think the agenda item had, actually more than double, that I would not have voted for that. So anyway, we can talk about that down the road at a work session.
Thank you, City Manager.
Nothing, Mayor. Thanks.
City Attorney.
Yes, just a few clarifications. So first thing, I don't believe my statements at the last meetings I referred to the citizens as being ignorant, and if I did, that was a complete lack of judgment. I think I said that there was a lack of voter education as it relates to some of the wording in charter amendments. So I just wanted to be clear for the voters. I didn't want that to be out there. The next thing was our lawsuits are filed publicly, and so are all settlements. So anyone who wanted to know what the facts are in any particular lawsuits surrounding the city, both filed at the state or federal level, they could get that information from the court. Those documents aren't sealed. Lastly, as it relates to Mr. Vernon's request, I have forwarded those emails to the city manager, but I will forward those to the entire council per his request. However, any meeting with a quorum of council is considered public, so that meeting wouldn't need to be private. It would actually be a posted public meeting like all of our other meetings. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Boone.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Real quickly, I just wanted to give a plug for this coming up this Sunday is our Viva Beaumont Hispanic Heritage Festival, and it's going to be next to the main library here, 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock, again this Sunday. Live entertainment, food trucks, lucha libre, wrestling, family, fun activities, and more. So again, it's free and open to the public this Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis. Thank you. Thank you. Tina? No. Okay, I'm going to try to get this out. And it's allergies. On today, we did an unveiling of the Charlton Pollard historical neighborhood, where at the corner and intersection of Irvin and Madison Street, we unveiled Charlton Pollard street signs. We had quite a crowd of people that live in the South End. Ms. Jackson was there. Also, the president of the Charlton Pollard Neighborhood Association was in attendance. and Councilmember Samuel, Councilmember Turner, Councilmember Turner, and Mayor Pro Tem Durio were all in attendance. And one of the questions I was asked, they said, well, how does it feel? And really, my dad is from the South End, and so every Friday I was dropped off to the South End by 5 o'clock at my grandmother's house. And I think the lady that was here earlier on Poplar Street. And so I was either on Poplar or either Tilson Street by 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon. But to see those signs go up was just quite an undertaking. And when you think about all of the history in the South End, to say that we have one of the largest refineries in North America that sits in the South End. I've often told people at different events for ExxonMobil, my aunt, you're gonna get in trouble for that. My aunt lived on Tagora Street, and so Tagora Street dead end to the entrance of ExxonMobil. That street is non-existent. Mr. Durden is shaking his head because he drove down that street many times, I'm sure, to get to work. But as a kid, we played baseball at the end of Tagora Street, and we used the circle entrance of ExxonMobil was our home base because we knew if we batted our ball towards the refinery, we couldn't get our ball back from the plant. Not that we were Babe Ruth or anything, but if you hit the ball, it was going to go inside of the plant. So we batted the ball into the neighborhood, and right inside of the circle was home base. And so it's just a lot of fun memories, and Carroll Street Park, and Tillman's Barbecue, and just so many businesses that was there. And just to look at it today, and when you drive down those areas, you can't even identify those streets any longer. And so it was very exciting, and it took me back to my childhood. I also got into the bucket of the lift truck and actually was lifted into the air to pull down the covering to unveil that street sign. But the neighbors that attended was very, very excited to see that go up, and they felt that it was just a long time coming. And so I'm excited for the community and for the neighborhood, just the sense of pride that community has, and so many historic things that's in that community. Again, Charlton Pollard High School, it's now a parking lot for workers. And so when you think about all of the people, so many famous people that live all across the world that came out of the South End. So it's very something to be proud about. Also, I would just like to say 409 Days this Saturday, Terrell Park. Please come out. And I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Durio. Of course, as you said, LIT is in your ward, but thank you for attending the groundbreaking because I was here this morning going over the budget with Mr. Semino. And again, Todd, thank you and your staff for an excellent job. 36 years to continue to get that type of award and having perfect budgets. That says a lot for the stability of our finance department, our city, and to you and your staff. So thank you so very much. Also, I attended a pep rally for STAR testing at Regina Hall on yesterday. And I got some very, very interesting questions. I just told them, just relax, they could do it, get your mind off the test. So one little boy asked me how old I was. And so
Told?
So, no, really, he guessed it. He was off by 1 year. And so he pretty much guessed it. And I told him, I said, well, I have a birthday coming up. So you're off just by 1 year. And they wanted to know, they asked me, did I get paid for my job? And I say, well, I really don't get a salary. So he said, well, who pay your bills? And so I say, I have a husband. So he said, oh, yeah, my daddy do that too. And so trust me, they got their mind off of the STAR test just for about 15 or 20 minutes. But as Councilmember Turner said, you know, when you ask them if they were excited about the test, and most of them said no, they were not. But you just have to instill in them that they have the confidence to go in, and all they're doing is transferring knowledge to paper, and they could pass this test, and that I believed in them. And so they were very, very excited by the time it was over. We had a lot of fun, and as the old show says, you never know, kids say the darndest things. And so it was just a little break for them to get away from the thought of the test. But again, they are testing, and so those are our little citizens, over 700 of them. And as Councilmember Turner said, those are our citizens, those are our future. And so we have to look after them, because one day they're going to be the citizens that will be running this city. And again, Sam, want to thank him for his role that he plays in the Youth Advisory Committee. He's always here at the meetings, and always engaged, very, very engaged. And so when you said some of them didn't want to come back, but Sam was even thinking about his birthday coming up, running for office. So sometimes, you know, you never know just what you pour into someone, how it could change their lives. But it was nice to see a full room at an evening meeting. Thank each and every one of you for coming out. Mrs. Poehler, thank you so much for your comments. I can't wait to sit and discuss. You have a wealth of knowledge and training on firefighting and EMS, and enjoyed all of your comments. Thank each and every one of you for coming out. And we will adjourn, go out, and spread the love. Thank you for coming.